Alright, ¿qué pasó, bromigos, brochowskis, amigas, whoever you are? Welcome to the channel. Thanks for tuning in. John's Moto Garage. Here we are at the wheelie spot with the DRZ SuperMoto, the beloved SuperMoto. I've had tons of people hit me up. Dude, I need a wheelie how-to, wheelie tutorial. How do you hit balance point? What are you learning to do wheelies? Actually, JK, I've only had like maybe 2 people message me. But 2 people is enough for me to say, alright, you guys, dagnammit, let's do it. Now, I'm new to the wheelie game. Just to give you a little bit of background, I can wheelie on a mountain bike and a bicycle. I grew up riding bikes, so I can do wheelies on those. So I already had some feel for balance point, but a motorcycle is completely different. Back in August, I bought myself an SSR 110cc pit bike, and I started doing little wheelies on that in my front and backyard. In October, I bought a Honda Grom. And that's really where everything started, where I really learned to pop the clutch, control the rear brake. A long time ago, I had a Ninja ZX6R. I learned to clutch up on that, but I only got the front wheel about 2 feet up in the air. Never hit balance point, never went more than like 10-20 feet. I was always chasing it out, so it definitely wasn't like a legit wheelie, but it'd been on my bucket list to learn wheelies since. So finally, that takes us to where we are now. This bike I've had for about a month now, and everything I learned on the ground transitioned very well to this bike, and then I continue to develop and progress with those skills. Today, I'm going to try and give you just a down and dirty, couple quick tips on how to wheelie, a few steps. This is kind of off the cuff. I didn't write out a script for this, but I kind of, in my mind, have it broken down into a few basic steps.
Oh yeah, and always make sure you're comfortable and familiar with the bike before you go out and try popping wheelies. You want to spend some time getting used to the throttle, the clutch, the brake, all that stuff before you even think about messing around with wheelies. So make sure you do that first. Safety first, mis amigos. Make sure you have your proper protective equipment and gear.
So step 1, when you're learning how to wheelie, definitely 100% always make sure you learn to cover the rear freaking brake. Half the tutorial videos I watched never even mentioned the rear brake, other than if you're going to loop out, hit the rear brake. But the good ones I watch, they say use the rear brake throughout the entire wheelie, not just at the beginning, not just at the end. Learn to modulate that rear brake throughout the entire wheelie. Watch some of the pros, some of the super good people out there who do slow wheelies, you know, the stand-up wheelies, even the long ones. Watch that foot and you'll notice they modulate the rear brake throughout the entire wheelie, and or they have a handbrake up here that they're using as well. But for our purposes, we're going to be using the rear brake. So that's step 1. Get that in your freaking mind. Use the dang rear brake. That's going to save you from looping out. It has saved me. And the times when the one time I looped out, I didn't use the rear brake. So that's going to be step 1. Step 2, you can do power wheelies or you can clutch it up. There's tons of videos out there discussing the differences, the pros and cons of the two. This video, we're going to talk about doing a clutch up. And that's going to be the step 2, is doing a clutch up. And we'll talk about that. Step 3, as you learn to clutch up and bring that front wheel up in the air, go back to that dang rear brake. Use the rear brake to bring the front wheel down. Initially, you're going to chop the throttle, but as you get more comfortable bringing that front wheel up in the air and the feeling of bringing that front wheel up in the air, I want you to focus less on chopping the throttle and 100% on using the rear brake to bring the front wheel down. Clutch up, bring wheel up, use the rear brake to bring the wheel down. So first 3 steps: rear brake, learning to clutch up, and rear brake. Okay, now step 4, after you learn to clutch up, it's going to be slowly, progressively bringing the front wheel higher and higher up in the air. So part of that's going to be altering body position a little bit. Part of that's going to be a little bit more gas or less gas, popping the clutch at different RPMs, all that kind of thing, kind of tweaking some of those differences. So that's going to be step 4, is starting to modulate throttle input and body position, some of those things. But always remembering, continue to use the rear brake whenever you get scared at all. Use the rear brake to bring that front wheel down. When I first started, I didn't even look at the rear brake, and all I did, I was just super choppy on the throttle. I'd go wham, wham, wham. Well, what happens when you crack the throttle or you lean back too far back? You're gonna loop out. If you already have it programmed in your mind and you have that muscle memory there to use the rear brake, you're gonna hit the rear brake and it's gonna bring the front wheel down. Oh man, whiplash. So those are gonna be the first 4 steps. Rear brake, learn how to clutch up, rear brake, and then step 4 is gonna be modulating and tweaking your throttle input and your body position. Let's talk body position real quick. Personally, I haven't done a ton of research on this, but I tend to sit like right in the middle of the seat, not too far back, probably a little farther back from the middle. And you don't want to lean too far forward on the bike. It's best to kind of be leaned back a little bit. Depending on the bike, on the Honda Grom, you really have to yank and pull up. There's zero power from the engine. On this Suzuki DRZ, you don't have to rely very heavily or as much on your body, like, you know, pulling the bike up. It's more going to be the power, you know, the torque and the bike doing the work, depending how much gas you give it.
One thing I didn't hit on very well is body position. Body position is actually super important, and sometimes that can be what makes or breaks the wheelie. And one thing that's important to do is preload the suspension. So what I mean by that is, as you pull in the clutch, so okay, clutch in, you press the front forks a little bit, and as you lift the clutch out and give it gas, you're starting to come back a little bit. Every bike's different. Some bikes, you really got to yank the bike up hard to get the front wheel in the air. Other bikes, it's just the slightest little movement. I'll show you a clip in slow motion so you can see what I'm talking about, and it's just ever so slight, but it makes a big difference. So what you're doing is you're basically working with the bike instead of working against the bike. So if you and the bike are in sync, then it's going to be much easier. And that's what the entire process is figuring out the right formula: clutch, throttle, speed, body position. Once you figure out the trick, easy peasy from there. Also with body position, like I said, you're going to be not right up here, not way back here, but kind of a neutral middle position, and you can play around a little bit with how far you're going to lean back.
Okay, we're going to go up to those 4 steps first for the beginners. Rear brake, learning how to do the clutch up, rear brake again to bring the front wheel down, and then modulating, you know, kind of gas, how much, how little, and RPMs, all that. For basic steps starting out, okay? Let's focus on those. So first thing, rear brake. Let's go ahead and just practice using that rear brake. Rear brake, rear brake, rear brake. And when you're doing it, I hope you can see okay, you're kind of initially starting out, you're just going to slam on the rear brake. But as you get better, you're going to kind of feather it, and you're going to be doing like this. And one person in a video, they said, imagine there's a little baby tomato there, and you're kind of just barely squishing it with your foot, just barely tapping on it. But starting out, you're probably going to hit the rear brake hard, the front wheel's going to come down hard, but you're just training your mind to use the rear brake until it becomes second nature. So step 1, rear brake, rear brake, rear brake, rear brake. You guys see that? You got that dialed in? All right. Step 2, clutch up. So basically what a clutch up is you pull the clutch in, you give a little bit of gas, and you dump the clutch. Clutch in, a little bit of gas, dump the clutch. Obviously the bike's going to be in gear.
So personally, I clutch it up with 1 finger. Some people use 2. I wouldn't recommend using a whole hand or even 3, because it's going to be a lot more difficult to hold on to the bike still, because once that front wheel comes up in the air, the last thing you want is that hand flying off. So 1 or 2 is ideal.
Based on the bike you're riding will determine if you want to do it in first or second gear, but usually it's going to be in first or second. First gear is going to be a lot more harsh. Second gear is going to probably require a little more gas and higher RPMs and a little bit higher speed. But here on the DRZ, I started out practicing it in second, and then I did it, went down to first to really fine tune it. On the Honda Grom, I did it in first gear, as far as doing it a sit down. Oh, on a side note, stand-ups or sit-downs, I'd recommend start out with sit-downs. Once you get sit-downs dialed in, transitioning to stand-ups, at least for me, was a pretty easy process. So we're just going to focus on sit-downs here today. So clutching up again, pull the clutch in, give it a little bit of gas, dump the clutch. The first few times you do this, I'm going to tell you, give it barely any gas at all. Get a feel for how the bike is going to lurk and jerk these first couple times. So you may not even get the front wheel up in the air the first couple times. That's okay. For this, we're going to do first gear on the DRZ clutch ups, and again, have that rear brake ready to go. You can almost just tap it before you even do a clutch up, just to make sure your foot's in the right spot. Tap, 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 rear brake. All right, let's do one clutch up. We're going to do clutch in, give a little bit of gas, clutch out. All right, so I'm going so slow that I'm barely keeping the bike from stalling, okay? You don't have to go super fast to do this. All right, so we're gonna go real slow, clutch in, a little bit of gas, clutch out. All it did on that was lurk. That's okay. Did you cover the rear brake? All right, clutch in, a little bit of gas. That's higher than you want to be doing it starting out, okay? Clutch in, gas, lid out. 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 Now you notice you can do that, and you're going to be working with that, and you're going to be basically modifying it, giving it a little bit more gas, doing it a little bit quicker, being a little bit more in sync, because eventually you want to get to where each of those motions are basically, you're doing it all in one motion. But we'll do more. Clutch in, gas, clutch out. Clutch in, gas, clutch out. So you notice that's doing it slow, and you're able to get the front wheel up off the ground. That's the first step. And what are we doing? That's right, cover the rear brake. Clutch in, gas, dump the clutch. Now, of course, my friends, find a good place where you're not going to run into other people, cars, vehicles, or anything like that, right at your own risk. I recommend don't even try wheelies. You don't want to go down this dangerous road, this addictive road that is the wheelie crisis of America. All right, clutch in, gas, clutch out. Clutch in, gas. All right, so that's an idea of where you might get after a little bit of practice. Clutch in, gas, slip the clutch. Clutch in, gas, slip the clutch. Now the idea is, again, every bike's different as far as how fast and what your RPMs are at, but the idea is you want to be kind of where your power band is on the bike when you slip the clutch. But really the way I'm going to tell you guys as newbies, don't focus so much on that. Really focus on, you don't want to kill yourself, so you're going to start with a tiny bit of gas and slowly work up. Slowly give it a little bit more gas as you get comfortable, and you'll have to mess around. Maybe you're going too fast, too little gas. Maybe you're going too much gas, too little, too slow. You know, it's about finding just that perfect spot. So clutch in, give it a little bit of gas, pop that front wheel up off there. Yeah, that was too much. You guys don't want to be doing that yet. Now the first few times you're going to be chopping the throttle a little bit, and that's okay. I'd rather you play it safe and chop the throttle, but as you get comfortable, bring that front wheel up in the air. Really focus on using the rear brake to bring the front wheel down, or front tire down, and try to, over time, focus on not chopping the throttle. So here's ideally what you're going to be doing the first few times. You're going to do a clutch up, and then you're going to use the rear brake to bring the front wheel down. So let's do that. Just over and over again. That's all I'm doing. Slipping the clutch, I'm using that rear brake to bring the wheel down. See how I'm bringing it down a little bit hard, but that's okay. So get to a point where you're doing that comfortably, and where you're using your rear brake every time to bring the wheel down. You're not relying on chopping the throttle or running out of RPMs, but you're using the rear brake specifically to bring the wheel down. Okay, and then you're slowly going to start to bring the front wheel higher and higher. And you're slowly going to chase it out and go a little bit longer. Now that whole time, you'll notice my throttle was consistent. what was controlling the height of the front wheel was my rear brake, which you can't see. I don't have a camera on there, but trust me, I'm using it, I swear. So we're going to do more of those, and that's going to be a couple weeks in. That may be a few days in, you know, it'll vary person by person, but don't expect that day one. But we're going to do more of those drills. Get the front wheel up in the air, use the rear brake to bring it down. As you get comfortable with plopping the clutch, you slowly start to bring the wheel higher and higher, which is going to mean giving a little bit more gas each time, kind of playing around with how much gas input to give it. So you'll notice that whole time my throttle was right about the same. I wasn't all choppy on the throttle. I wasn't going like this with my throttle hand. I was real consistent, but my rear brake was controlling the height of the wheelie the whole time. All right, slowly starting to get higher and higher. All right, now again, that's not something you're gonna be doing first day or two, you know, 2 days in. That's gonna be a few weeks in. But just to give you an idea, all I'm doing, popping the clutch, giving a little bit of gas, and controlling the throttle there. Not getting balance point, but we're getting up a little higher. Okay, let's try it a few more times. These are more like what you'll do the first couple days. Notice that? Okay, that's first gear on the DRZ. We'll do a couple in second gear, just to give you an idea. Second gear, you're gonna be going a little bit faster. First, I'm going about 6 miles per hour. Second gear, I go 9, 10 miles per hour. Now you notice in second gear, I gotta give it a lot more gas to get that front wheel up. And it's almost like it takes a little bit longer. But I'm still doing the same thing. I'm using the brake. As soon as the front wheel comes up in the air, use that rear brake. All right, let's do a couple more of those in second gear. Second gear is way less aggressive on this. So those are going to be your initial drills and practices. Okay, so again, let's review. First step, rear brake. Second step, learn to clutch up. Clutch ups are going to be different on every bike, but the concept is the same. Clutch in, give it gas, clutch out. Clutch in, gas, clutch out. All right. Step 3, as soon as that front wheel comes up in the air, use the rear brake to bring it back down. Do that over and over and over again. Train your mind to use the rear brake. Rear brake. Rear brake. And tell yourself, rear brake. I would tell myself over and over again, all right, use the rear brake, pull back, slip the clutch, rear brake, rear brake. All right, and then step 4, work that front wheel higher and higher. Start to work the front wheel up higher and higher as you get comfortable while continuing to use the rear brake, and you're gonna modulate throttle a little bit, okay? So you're going to do that, practice, 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 always cover that rear brake. All right, I'm on that rear brake as soon as that front wheel comes up. I'm on that rear brake, I'm on that rear brake. Now again, part of step 4 is, in addition to bringing the front wheel higher and higher, you're going to start messing around a little bit with throttle, you know, modulating the throttle a little bit, but really rely on that rear brake to bring the wheel down, not so much on the throttle. All right, so that covers us for the first basics of how to do the wheelie, is getting that front wheel up in the air. Now here's the next spot, and this is kind of where I'm at in my wheelie journey, is finding balance point. So we're gonna move on to a little bit more advanced things where you've got all those first steps dialed in. You're able to get the front wheel up in the air, you can do long wheelies, you're chasing it out, you know, you're able to kind of control the throttle and the brake. So now how do you get to where you're at your balance point and you're able to kind of maintain it and lower those RPMs? Because once you're at that point, you can slow down the wheelie, you can learn to shift through the wheelie, which is something I'm working on now, and you can focus on other aspects of the wheelie, right?
All right, that's going to do it for the first part. That's going to be your beginner wheelie tutorial, basically getting the basics dialed in. And you're going to want to do drills, practices, spend time on those fundamentals. I can't stress that enough. You got to dial in the fundamentals. Make sure you got all of that solid before you start trying to really push it on the wheelie. One more tip. If you're out there trying these wheelies and you're just not having any luck, try different things. Make adjustments. Maybe give a little more gas, a little less gas, go a little faster, a little slower. Slip the clutch at different RPMs. Try pulling up harder, pulling up less. You got to experiment a little bit because every bike's different and everybody's method is slightly different. And sometimes you just got to take a step back. Remember, all you're doing is a wheelie. You know, we're not heroes. We're not saving anybody's lives out here. It's just a wheelie, you guys. As cool as you may think it is. So don't get too worked up over it. If you're not having fun doing it, take a step back, relax, take a few days off. Because the whole idea is to be out there having fun, and it defeats the purpose if you're just getting yourself all worked up. So take it easy, try different things. That's just part of the learning curve, part of the process. So take your time, don't get worked up over it. Enjoy the journey, enjoy the process, enjoy the little progressions, the little milestones that you hit. And good luck out there doing wheelies, you guys. Have fun. Let me know your tricks and tips, anything that's helped you with your wheelie progress. I appreciate the support. I appreciate the participation. John's Moto Garage. Stay tuned for the intermediate, which is to come. Hasta la próxima. Nos vemos.